I will promise them is that we try to set up committees to look into the issues. I will tell them that we cannot do everything they say, because of so many limitations that we have. But we will work on them, and with their help, I hope that some of them will volunteer to be members of these committees, and we'll see how we can move things forward. And again, I thank them very much for helping to move Oraifite forward. At least in terms of idea, Oraifite has moved forward right now. But we'll try to implement some of these things. Without taking too much of your time, we're going to the next item. I'm going to call on Destiny Dike to come and introduce Dr. Adobe Okobi. She is our guest speaker, and I'd like the young ones to listen very well, because next time it will be you. Thank you.
Born in Washington, D.C. on April 8, 1982, our guest speaker since nursery school articulated an interest in medicine. After graduating from Freeport High School on Long Island, she enrolled at the State University of New York in New Paltz, graduating with honors in just 3 years. From there, she continued to the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry, where she received a medical degree with distinction in community service. For the last 3 years, she trained as a pediatric resident at St. Christopher's Hospital for Children in Philadelphia. Since graduating from this residency last month, she is currently serving as Chief Resident of Pediatrics at St. Barnabas Hospital in the Bronx, New York. Please welcome our guest speaker, daughter of Dan and Carol Okobi, Adobe Okobi.
Good afternoon, OCUSA. I know I just saw you a few minutes ago, and I know in your program it says something about developing Oraifite in the community and youth, but I'm going to touch on that a little bit and kind of start with the theme of leadership, which is what we're here for. So leaders come in many forms. Some people are born leaders. People flock to them for advice. They're the first to raise their hand in class, not necessarily because they know the right answer, but because they enjoy participating. They get results. They're often the ones nominated for positions because they take their responsibilities seriously. Others become leaders because they're passionate about a particular topic, or more frequently, because no one else wants the position, or a variety of other reasons. The one thing that all leaders do have in common, whether they want to be seen as leaders or not, is that when things are going well, they get the praise. But when things are going poorly, and they frequently are, they often get the blame. It is an unspoken rule, and one that is followed regardless of culture, position, race, or creed. I remember growing up as the oldest in a family of 4 children, who you've actually met all of at this point. I felt like I had to fight for the right to do things that came easily for my younger siblings. Probably by the time they got to my sister, they were just tired. That's what I think. But it was expected that I would do well in school because A, we're Nigerian and that's what we do. But also, more importantly, because I was the oldest and I had to set a good example. I remember saying to my mom, who may or may not remember this, I remember saying once to her that I don't want my siblings to look at me because I don't want to be example to them. I let them find their own example. Of course, that didn't work, and that argument never got me anywhere but in trouble. Being a leader means that you're guiding the team. A good leader has to be able and willing to do what he or she asks of others. The saying, "do what I say and not what I do," is not going to work with most people. Some of the best leaders show this to be true. Martin Luther King Jr. was a famous civil rights leader, I'm sure many of you know, who was not only willing to lead by word, but was also willing to lead by action. He was imprisoned for his nonviolent protests and was threatened and eventually killed by those in power for vocalizing his belief that we should live in a unified society regardless of color. Nelson Mandela, a famous man near and dear to our hearts, was imprisoned for 27 years for going against apartheid, which is a principle that people should be separated by color. In his statement from the dock at the opening of his defense case of the trial prior to his imprisonment in 1964, he stated, "During my lifetime, I have dedicated myself to the struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." This is a man who is so strong in his belief that he's willing to die for his belief, and this is a true leader. Not that you have to die, but I'm just saying. Another quality of a good leader is the ability and willingness to delegate. This is a very important thing for a leader. In medicine, because it's something I've become more and more familiar with in the last few years, we practice running codes, where we each have to take a turn at being the team leader. For the non-medical people, a code is when a patient is having a cardiorespiratory arrest. Basically, the person has either stopped breathing or their heart has stopped beating. In our mock codes, which are something that we practice so that during a real code, no one's really super nervous, although we all get nervous. In our mock codes during residency, we had to practice in different roles. As the person who's in control of making sure the patient's airway is secure, that person has to make sure that the patient is breathing, or breathe for them in some cases. The person who does the chest compressions is the one who's responsible for basically pushing on their chest and forcing their hearts to circulate blood so that it remains in the system and gets to their brain and the important organs that you want the blood to get to. And there's a person who puts in an IV, there's a person who records the event, and then of course there's a team leader. The leader's job is to delegate tasks so that everyone knows their role and is accountable for certain aspects of caring for the patient. Once that is established, their main job is to anticipate the next step, listen to others for information about the patient's status, and see the big picture so that he or she can direct others on what to do next. The listening aspect of being the team leader is actually the most important part, because you can miss important things by ignoring your teammates. For example, if the airway person is telling you that it's difficult to ventilate, then you may have to intubate the patient, but if you don't listen to them, then you may not know, and that patient can go down the tubes. Sometimes you have to stop what you're initially intending on doing because the new information can change your diagnosis and management. Mistakes made by not listening to others can be fatal in this case. The best mock codes are the ones in which everyone knows their role, accepts responsibility for their part, listens to the leader and communicates any issues so that the leader who sees the big picture can make the right decision. If only life ran this smoothly. I can probably give you many examples of bad leadership, which unfortunately has plagued our country time and again. But I can't change who the leader of our country is right now, but I hope to bring some important things to consider for the future leadership of Nigeria in general, and Oraifite in particular. We need to have a sense of solidarity in order to work together. If everyone is looking out for his own relatives and loved ones, it leaves many gaps in the system and we fail as a society. Whether you are from Alwa, oops, sorry, I'm clearly not from there. Umeziopi, Ifite, Ezumeri, Oraifite, or Ebola, which I think is the best place to be from. Regardless of where you're from, we all call Oraifite our home.
Yes.
We should be striving to make it as progressive and successful as possible. It was such a blessing that we were able to make the return trip back to Oraifite to give back to our community and people who are less fortunate than ourselves. That event took good leadership, great leadership, with all the planning that was involved, and I am proud to say that so many people were able to participate. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to, but reading the reports, it looks as if we really made a difference in people's lives. So what can we do as leaders of Oraifite to improve our fellow townsfolk and fellow Nigerians? You've heard a lot of great ideas from my younger colleagues and some of the other youth out here, and I think that that's great, and that's a great start. We should all be participating in meetings like this. Everyone, young and old, should be giving of their ideas. Although these national conventions take place every 2 or 3 years, there are local chapters that need the involvement of people year-round. The little chapter that could, Oklahoma, needs more people. I'm still not moving there. But you're never too young or too old to get involved. We were all blessed with different talents, so why not volunteer yours? Although I know we all like titles, because we're Nigerians, we like titles a lot. Not everyone can be the president or vice president or secretary or treasurer. Don't deprive us of your talent simply because you don't hold a big enough title. Having a strong membership with people who are willing to attend meetings, plan events, cook food, as you all know, that's very important. Make phone calls, send emails, and do a variety of other activities is what makes the organization.
That's right.
The president can't hold a meeting for just himself and his cabinet members, and even if he did, without the women who cook, I think he'd be pretty hungry anyway, and very ineffective. And understandably, the economy is tight, and people are unable to make the kind of donations now that they were maybe making in 2007 and in prior years. But your time is an invaluable asset that doesn't cost you anything. The future of Oraifite, Nigeria, and the world lies in the hands of your children, the ones who were speaking here earlier. Which is kind of a scary thought, because I've seen some of them running around a few years ago and looking crazy, and half of you acted like you didn't even know they were yours. But hopefully they grow up to be responsible citizens of both Nigeria and the United States, or London or New Zealand, or wherever you call your home away from home. We're looking to them to transform our developing nation into one that makes us proud to call ourselves Nigerians from Oraifite. This vision, this vision cannot be fulfilled if they don't see the example from you, their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. They need to understand the importance of giving back to our community. And what better way to do that than to physically go there? And more importantly, they need to not only know where they come from, but also who they are. A child whose parents come from Oraifite, who grows up never having been there, will not grow up to call Oraifite his home. At most, it will be the place where his parents came from, and the legacy dies with him. Unfortunately, I have seen that happen time and again when I meet children, even yesterday, who don't understand Igbo, don't know the meaning of their name, can't pronounce their name, have never been to Nigeria, and probably have no interest in going. By the time they're teenagers, they're almost a lost cause. There's a verse that I read once: teach a child the way he should grow, and when he grows old, he shall never part from it. You guys agree that this is a true statement? You, as adults, are the leaders of your household, and whatever a child learns in your house from the time that they are born until 18 years of age is the foundation of how they'll continue to be and how they'll continue to live their life. And eventually, how they'll live their life and lead their family. For your legacy to be one that you're proud of, You have to start now to instill the pattern of making your Oraifite community important. Be a good leader. Thank you.